Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Security Repo Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Dwayne. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all the shares, the likes, subscribes, and getting the message out there to help us keep making the world a little bit safer, one podcast at a time. This week, we have an awesome guest who I met back at Blue Team Con, and we're going to dig into the talk that she gave at Blue Team Con. But Amy Devine worked in embedded systems development of wireless protocols before switching over to cybersecurity. She currently works as a systems architect for AV while contributing her knowledge and skills to the cybersecurity community, giving talks in the local community about securing email and avoiding online scams. Thanks for coming on the show. It's so good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me on.
Well, it was great to see you again this year at Blue Team Con. So let's just start there. How was Blue Team Con for you this year?
Oh gosh, fantastic. It's always a great show. I really enjoy the cybersecurity community activities, and these conferences are just wonderful. I think Blue Team Con might have been my first conference getting into the cybersecurity world, actually, when I was in my master's program at DePaul. So being in the city, going to a city school, just happened to find out about Blue Team Con and showed up. Um, it's amazing. So if anybody hasn't gone before, please come. It's totally an inclusive environment.
It is a really great event. I did also want to ask before we dive into the main reason I brought you onto the show, how did you move over from embedded systems to start working in security?
That's a great question, and it is a little bit of a story. So I'll happily share that here. So I did work in embedded systems development, like you talked about in the intro there, and with wireless protocols. So dealing a lot with low-level development, developing new systems, embedded systems that happen to be able to do stuff like Wi-Fi, LTE, CDMA, GSM, all these type of telecommunication protocols. And what I discovered was that there are people who understand how the RF space works, and then there's people who understand how physical networks work. But there doesn't seem to necessarily be a connection between RF and the physical network, and then adding security on top of that too. So you mentioned I work for AV. I've worked for defense companies for a number of years. And that's kind of where I really got into the embedded systems and wireless spaces there. One of the things the government's been pushing over the past few years is to be more vigilant around cybersecurity, and especially of some of their products that go out and do wonderful things for our country. And again, going back to not understanding how the wireless protocols work and then understanding how network security works, I just thought there was a good opportunity for me to kind of pivot some of my experience, gain knowledge on the cybersecurity front, and then become kind of a better bridge between those two different domains and talk more about securing of these complex systems, in the defense space. So
Thank you for sharing that. I'm always curious, and that's one of the things I think we do on the show pretty well is highlight people's journey because, wow, everybody's got their own path into this, and it's just encouraging for other people that might have a different background that say, "Hey, wow, I could do that too." So, back at Blue Team Con, you gave a really awesome talk. I highly enjoyed it. I even featured it in the blog write up I made because it's a really good talk, but about cleaning your inbox and finding a bunch of stuff that wasn't yours that shouldn't have been there. Let's just start there. What was this talk?
yeah, so the title of the talk was Why Your Email Matters. And I'll be completely honest with you, and I think I shared this with the con as well too. It was like I wanted to have a more streamlined inbox and to be able to get in and get out. I run the whole household in addition to working, right? So I get all the bills and I coordinate the schedules and all of that sort of stuff. So I just want to be able to get in and out of my email. What I noticed was definitely over the past few years, but I started to get an increasing number of emails that were not for me. They were for these other people that had similar names to mine. And they were applying for things such as, Rockstar game licenses. They were applying for loans. They were trying to contact their grandchildren in some cases and sharing all these personal bits of information. Sometimes unsubscribing doesn't work. We all look for that unsubscribe link in the bottom if Google doesn't catch it in spam or whatever email provider you're using, if they don't catch it. But sometimes that doesn't work, and it wasn't working for me. So what I did is I started seeing okay, well, who are these people and what information are they collecting? Is it somebody who's trying to be me, but they're just using a different name, and they're going by Angela Devine versus Amy Devine, for example? So has somebody started to commandeer my identity? And the more I dug into this and started, and I don't advise this as a security professional, clicking on things in the emails, I realized that I was having access to their birthdays, to their current address, to their family members' full names in some instances. And this is personal information I got just clicking a link, right? Unauthenticated, unauthorized access in some situations. I shouldn't be getting this information. And that started me down this whole rabbit hole of, who does the internet think I am? Or my email, what does this collection of bits, what does this think I am versus who I am in real life? So kind of a real twisted way of looking at all of this junk mail I've gotten over the past 10 years.
The issue isn't that you're getting other people's personal information. That's bad in and of itself. But there's a larger issue here that was what your talk was focused on. You mentioned some research from Duke University that you tied all this to. So what are these underlying issues?
Yeah, so the Duke Fuqua School of Business put out a research paper that basically said that your digital footprint is just as good of a credit indicator as going through the traditional credit checks, like through Equifax and TransUnion and the stuff that we're used to today. And I thought, that can't be right. But their research does indicate that. Now, they had a couple of bits of information they pulled out. And this was related to people that use their name in their email address, right? So whether it's adevine or amy.devine@gmail.com versus, I had a bad night at, some website.com, right? That even that using a quote unquote proper name versus some random phrase seemed to make you more trustworthy, and therefore they saw that you were less likely to default on a loan. And then there were other indicators saying if you misspelled your email address, their research indicated you were more likely to default on a loan as well. When you read that at the face value, it starts to get concerning for somebody like me who's receiving all of these bits and pieces of email from people that are obviously mistyping the email address, right? So they're the ones that are more likely to default on a loan. But when we start talking about digital footprints, right, what are these data brokers? And I don't know that I really got into this part in the talk, but anybody that's looking at, where I've been, where my email is linked online, they're now starting to get a tainted picture because bad risk is now starting to identify with me. And that's kind of the follow-on bit of research that I'd like to do, is to see how true is that, and how much does my online identity need to be tainted before it actually has detrimental impact on somebody like me.
Do you think you have been impacted? Do you think that you're getting watched by Equifax or a similar group and saying, wow, you can't get a loan?
I hope not. But where the tax is coming, where the pain is coming, is that because I know there's other people using my email address, that I question things more. So, for example, over the weekend, I got an SMS, a text message saying, like, hey, your cellular account is almost over or out of minutes or something like that. And I'm like, well, that's odd.
I haven't used
And
minutes in years.
I know it was something like a HD plan, which is something on T-Mobile. Like you can buy a pass to like upgrade your quality of streaming, I guess, which I shouldn't need to do with the plan that I'm on. Uh, and what was interesting is that there was no link in there. There was no phone number to contact customer service, which would be indicators of a potential smishing attack, right? If there's a weird URL in there or like call random customer service, trust us in this text message. It's fine. We're all okay. But I get stuff like that. And then I start to wonder, how did my phone get this? Are one of those people that are using my email address, are they now somehow encroaching other ways? How many breadcrumbs have I left? How many open doors have I left on the internet to who I am and what is mine? So I'm spending more mental time and effort questioning some of these alerts that I'm getting now.
What are you doing for these emails and these attempts? Well, obviously you're ignoring the dumb attempts, but the emails themselves, like these are other people's private data. Like, what can you do?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I did actually reach out to some legal counsel on this because the email laws about what you send, what companies send, that's more regulated, right? And how they protect your information. There's laws on that. So, like in terms of data breaches, there are notifications that have to go out. There's compliance that needs to be adhered to. There's that to protect your data. But I'm just a random person receiving a random piece of mail. It'd be no different than your mailman or mail carrier putting your neighbor's letter in your mailbox, right? You can think of it that way. It's just a mistake. Maybe it's just a large mistake on that. So I wanted to understand, what can I do? And if the intent here is protection, then the laws seem to be on the individual side who's trying to do the protection. So on my side, I'm not doing anything malicious here. So the first step that I take is to try and notify the business or where this email is actually coming from, right? And be like, hey, I think you might have an error here. Can you remove me from the mailing list? Can you delete the account? If it's for job interviews, I would respond back, hey, you might want to actually give them a call. This is the wrong email address. I try to be a good citizen in that regard because people do make mistakes. I make mistakes, right? And there's also, like we mentioned earlier, the unsubscribed link on there, which sometimes will work. Most of the time, it doesn't seem to work anymore. And then after that, then it's like, well, this is really a nuisance, and I don't need exposure to this person's information. So I can go in and reclaim access to that account that was registered in my email. Then that gives me opportunity to manually go in and potentially delete the account or, have other options to contact customer service that might not be available to somebody who isn't a customer, you know. So try and go back in there, try to change a password. Don't change the email address because you're just pushing the problem onto somebody else down the road. So try and be a good neighbor on this aspect. Try and follow the company policies. But at the end of the day, you actually own that account. Somebody else just created it. So you can go in there and kind of do with it what you want with the intention of shutting it down and reclaiming part of your identity.
This raises so many questions about the culpability of the organizations themselves. So you as an individual are in the clear. Again, you got sent this information by mistake. But the fact that you can just click a button and see private information, like, is it that brittle? Or the system's that brittle that they can just expose data that easily?
That's a great question on that. And I think that we have sacrificed efficiency for security. And what I mean by that is a lot of times you would, click on something in an email for like a loan, approve this loan. It's like, oh goodness, I don't need to get this information. Um, so if you click through, it'll be like, hey, Bob Smith, or it would be Bob Devine, right? To follow my email. Um, and it would give me like a form that was half filled out. It would have their zip code, it would have date of birth all filled out in there. It's like that's the information that they probably populated the first time that they went to the site, right? To see, did I quickly, quick apply for a loan or something like that. So it's convenience. That company, that quick loan company is trying to close a deal. And the way that they can do that is having a very efficient, what is that called? Sales path through, right? So they're trying to just get the customer from being interested to closing the deal as quickly as possible. As much as they can pre-populate, they're going to do that, which is
Safety versus convenience. Like in a perfect world, the safe path would be the most convenient path, but that is not how we tend to build things. But that's a
mhm.
whole other rabbit hole we could go down. Um, so what do you recommend people do? Like if someone notices, hey, I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of different things you can do depending upon your own threat model, right? And your own risk assessment. And it might be kind of funny to think about doing a risk assessment on oneself, but we do it, right? And if you have a car, you have car insurance. Okay, that's legally required, but we get insurance for that. If we have a home, we have a mortgage, right? If we take trips, travel, there's travel insurance you can buy, right? And it's all based upon your assessment of risk and how risky is a thing. Do you want to reclaim your money on that? So for people that are, really wanting to monitor their identity, there's services out there. I'm not affiliated with any of them. And you can go and pay for another company to kind of troll the web and look for places where your email address is being used, and then they will contact the company, or they'll contact the data broker, right, to have your information removed. You can pay companies to do that, or you can keep a record of it yourself. And I've put some tools online, some scripts that you can install into Google Tools to be able to scrape your inbox and say, these are all the domains that you're receiving email from. That might help you to start to go through and manually clean it up if you don't want to pay for a cleanup site. There's also identity monitoring services. If anybody was involved in the OPM breach of 10 plus years ago, we probably all have. I've had identity monitoring service for well over a decade. I think a lot of us probably have multiple identity services now, with all the retailers having data spills and all that. So there's all those services there. And I mean that to be completely safe, avoid the web, but we can't do that. That's not how our society is crafted anymore.
No, that is a fairly extreme option. Just let's go off and live in the woods. Let's live off the land. Thank you for being here. We are going to move on to our final segments of the show, where we like to ask all of our guests the same base level questions to get to know you and to spread a very specific set of knowledge out there. Starting with, what is your all-time favorite security command line tool?
So my favorite command line tool probably, well, I was thinking editor. I'm a big fan of VI because I'm a little old school in that regard. And then after that, oh my gosh, I think it's probably the Metasploit family, right? To be able to go and start playing with that. That was actually a lot of fun as a tool to start getting my feet wet in cybersecurity.
So you have been a hiring manager. And as you're hiring people, do you have a favorite go-to interview question?
Yes, I do. And I ask this of people I'm interviewing, and I also ask it when I am being interviewed. And that is, if you could describe yourself as a music genre, what would that be? And what I find is that people's identity tends to be reflected in their music preferences. So if you're trying to do a quick litmus test on a culture fit, I find that to be a really good question.
Given your backdrop right now, that totally makes sense. All right, best advice, worst advice time. What is the best security advice you are hearing out there or that you've ever heard?
It's going to be a little bit cliche, but just keep going. I think that applies to a lot of things in life. But as security professionals, most of the time the answer is not obvious. And we need to spend time investigating. We need to talk to people. We need to do a little bit of research. We're pulling logs. We're grepping through things, trying to figure out what happened, right? That's perseverance. So just keep going. You're going to find the answer soon enough. And, reach out to people. This community, this field that we dive into, it's the word cybersecurity is almost like the word Kleenex. And there's a term for that, right? Where you have a word that can mean a brand. It could mean many different brands. It could be, hey, I just need to blow my nose. Can I just have something, right? To use instead of a Kleenex here, a tissue, right? Cybersecurity means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. It could be network administration. It could be writing policies in the GRC space. It's a wide field. So if you are looking at something and you're like, man, I just can't figure this out, find a friend, find somebody, phone a friend. You will find somebody out there that can help you. And together you can continue to move forward and persevere through this.
So, what's on the other side of that? What's the worst advice you have ever heard out there?
I think it's more of a behavior. And it's really the opposite, right? I can be the best at everything in this field. And I think, I saw some of that in my master's program going through cybersecurity. People who thought they were smart. They knew a lot about a lot of different things, right? Great, find something you're passionate about, dig into that. But again, this is a wide field. Don't feel like you have to go at it alone. Don't feel like you have to know everything and you have to have a trillion certs to get into this field. You don't. And that's why we have like villages like Lockpick Village, right? At all these cybersecurity conventions. What does lockpicking have to do with security? It's physical security. That's part of cybersecurity, right? We have to be able to physically protect these systems, whether it's chaining it up to our tables like we used to do in the old days, right? To putting it in vaults. It's all part of the process. It's all part of the solution space that's out there. So don't feel like you have to be the best at everything. Don't feel like you have to have all the certs. You just have to have the passion.
That's why I love asking the bad advice that invariably turns into good advice. So, we get two pieces of good advice on the show. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your knowledge with us and your research. We're going to put all the links to things we talked about down below, including your blog. We always like to give the guest the last word. Do you have anything else you want to tell us? Any other knowledge you want to lay down? The floor is yours.
Thanks. This has been a fantastic experience. My first, on-air experience. So this is wonderful. Thank you, Dwayne, for inviting me. And then in addition to Blue Team Con, like we talked about, we have B-Sides Chicago, which is coming up at the end of October. It's usually in the fall time every year. It's another wonderful conference to get involved with and to get your feet wet in terms of cybersecurity. A little bit smaller than Blue Team, but just as inclusive. So hopefully I'll see everybody out at a con sometime soon.
Excellent way to end the show. Thank you so much again for being here. And hopefully we'll see you out there in the audience at one of these conferences soon. So thanks you very much. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
Thanks.